بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Welcome back everyone to another discussion. We'll pick up where we left off, inshallah. We are in the waiting period and we finished the waiting period. So what is left to discuss then is the maintenance. So that's what we were talking about, the maintenance. We'll backtrack just a little bit so we have a complete, chain of thought that a woman who is divorced in a revocable divorce, her maintenance is that she has to have housing and her expenses. It's obligatory for the husband. And if it's a final divorce, then the man only has to provide for the housing, not the maintenance, except if she's pregnant. So we took that a little bit, half of it, we'll just do it again. And then that segues into the issue of mourning, al-hidad. And we talk about the mourning of a woman who has lost her husband. Now remember that the waiting period is 4 lunar months and 10 days. So that's, quite a bit of time. It's a little bit more than a quarter of the year. And in that we want to know what is permissible and not permissible. What are the signs of mourning? So the mourning is an obligation for the woman whose husband has passed away. What does that mean? So what can you wear, not can you wear? Can you stay in the house? Do you have to stay in the house? Can you leave? Things like that. I mentioned some of those in passing, but this is the clip or the lecture when we'll get into the details of that. And it will conclude with the section about leaving the house or not leaving the house. And that's sort of what I mentioned. There's a common misconception that she can't leave at all. So I want to highlight that. And we also, in the middle of that discussion, we will also learn that a woman can actually mourn other relatives that have passed away, but only for the maximum of 3 days. So for us, in Islam in general, mourning is only for 3 days. That's when we offer condolences and things like that. But when we talk about mourning in fiqh, basically we're going to talk about the woman whose husband has died, because that's where there's an extended period of time and a lot of fiqh that's involved. Those are the main topics we'll talk about. We'll pick it up inshallah in the next clip. So we begin the way we normally begin, which is to turn to the text itself of Abi Shuja' radiallahu anhu. And yes, نعم. قال المصنف رحمه الله ونفعنا بعلومه في الدارين آمين. فصل في أنواع المعتدة وحقوقها. ويجب للمعتدة الرجعية السكنى والنفقة، ويجب للبائن السكنى دون النفقة إلا أن تكون حاملا. ويجب على المتوفى عنها الإحداد، وهو الامتناع من الزينة والطيب، وعلى المتوفى عنها زوجها والمبتوتة ملازمة البيت إلا لحاجة. So that is the following rough translation. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Mourning. A widow must observe mourning, al-ihdad. I think I said hidad in the introduction. It's al-ihdad, my apologies, which is refraining from adornment and using perfume. I mean, of course, there's like a million things that need to be discussed. That's just too short of a line. And a widow and a irrevocably divorced woman must remain in the house except in a case of necessity. Sorry, support and maintenance. I forgot that part. Let me read that again. During the waiting period, housing and expenses are obligatory for the husband to provide to a woman who can be taken back. That was last class. Starting in this class, housing without expenses is obligatory for the husband to provide to a woman who has been irrevocably divorced unless she is pregnant. A widow must observe mourning, al-ihdad, which is refraining from adornment and using perfume. A widow and an irrevocably divorced woman must remain in the house except in cases of necessity. Now, let's go back. Let's look at the adillah really quickly. I know in the hashiyah there's quite a few hadith that will come up. The pregnant woman being taken care of, that comes from maintenance and all of that. That comes from Surah Al-Talaq, verse 6. أَسْكِنُوهُنَّ مِنْ حَيْثُ سَكَنْتُم مِّن وُجُودِكُمْ وَلَا تُضَارُّوهُنَّ لِتُضَيِّقُوا عَلَيْهِنَّ. We talked about that last time. Okay, al-ihdad part, the mourning, about not wearing perfume, etc. This comes from the hadith of Bukhari and Muslim, narrated on the authority of Habiba radiallahu anha, who's heard from the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام: لا يحل لامرأة تؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر أن تحد على ميت فوق 3 ليال إلا على زوج 4 أشهر وعشرة. So the Prophet ﷺ said in this hadith, it is not permissible for a woman who believes in God in the final hour to express mourning for any person above 3 days except for her husband for 4 days and 10 months. Now this is an interesting, just usuli kind of point, is that the way the hadith is structured is that there's a prohibition and then an exception. In general, when there's an exception after the prohibition, the exception indicates an obligatory act. So that's why this is the dalil. Just wanted to highlight that for you because I think it's an important principle in general. We also have a hadith in Bukhari and Muslim on the authority of Atiyya al-Ansariyya radiallahu anha, who said, كنا ننهى أن نحد على ميت فوق 3 إلا على زوج 4 أشهر وعشرة. So we were forbidden from mourning anybody above 3 days except for our husbands, meaning if their husbands died for 4 days and 10 months. ولا تكتحلوا ولا تتطيبوا ولا تلبس ثوبا مسبوغا إلا ثوب عصب. And we were not able to put kohal, eyeliner, or we're not allowed to perfume ourselves or to wear decorative clothing. But when they were, I'll just translate the rest of it, when they would purify themselves or make wudu, or after their menstrual cycle, they can put a little bit of fragrance that was acceptable. And then as far as staying in the house, this comes from the verse of Surah Al-Talaq, verse 1: لا تخرجوهن من بيوتهن ولا يخرجن إلا أن يأتين بفاحشة مبينة وتلك حدود الله ومن يتعدى حدود الله فقد ظلم نفسه. So they do not remove them from their houses in the waiting period, and they should not leave their houses except if they do something grossly wrong. And that's like, if they're hurting the people in the house or going crazy or berserk or something like that. But that verse indicates the obligatoriness of staying put, which of course we will talk about, inshallah. All right, so with that, let us begin the backtrack and go back to sort of the text and pick up the discussion. We'll kind of do it a little bit more justice, inshallah. So he says, rahimahullah, housing without expenses is obligatory for the husband to provide to a woman who has been irrevocably divorced unless she is pregnant. Okay? So in this case, the woman who is irrevocably divorced, or a woman who has achieved a khula from her husband, or an annulment, a fasakh of the marriage. So those it's not just a man who has divorced his wife 3 times, whether it's 3 separate times and this is the 3rd time, or it's 3 in one pronouncement, which, as we said in our madhab, we allow. Those other type of forms also are applicable. In this case, the man provides the housing, not the upkeep, not the maintenance, as we discussed in the last class. Except if she is pregnant, in a pregnancy that is connected to the husband or able to be, in other words, he hasn't done the la'an or something like that. In which case he has to provide the maintenance. Okay, so, and part of that is, part of the rhyme and reason behind that is that in the In the case of a revocable divorce, we said that the wife is still his wife, with the proof being that he can take her back. So he has to provide the things that a husband has to provide. In the case of irrevocable divorce, whether it's a third divorce or whether it's a khula or an annulment, a fasakh from the courts, which are irrevocable, she's no longer she's no longer his wife because he can't take her back, but she has to, by Sharia, stay the waiting period. There has to be that waiting period, the iddah. So she has to do that somewhere, and we know from the text of the Quran that she's supposed to do that in the house. So in that case, the man is going to just default to paying the minimum, which is the housing. So if a woman is divorced 3 times in the house, she's just going to stay in the house. I mean, there's nothing, the housing upkeep, there's nothing else for the husband to do other than making sure that she's in the housing, unless there's like a problem, or as we mentioned before, maybe the house is too tight, or there's not space, or there's a construction issue, or whatever the case may be, in which case he will have to pay to put her somewhere else. But all that other stuff, the maintenance, the groceries, the medical, all that kind of stuff, he doesn't have to provide during that period of time, except if she's pregnant, in which case he will have to, obviously, for the duration of the pregnancy, and obviously beyond the pregnancy, he has to pay for the child if it's his child. I mean, you have to. A man is obligated to pay for that. So I think that kind of makes sense with the previous discussion, that if it is a revocable divorce, then the man has to pay for the housing and for the maintenance. Okay? So that covers sort of one topic, which is the divorce topic. Now we're going to move into the mourning topic. Let me take care of the small piece first. I mean, even though it comes at the end, let me just say it now so we can get it out of the way, which is that, as I said in the introductory clip, mourning for us is a 3-day affair. So a woman can mourn anybody, as we are going to describe, for 3 days, like her father or her parents or uncle or something like that, but not beyond, except for the husband, which is sort of something divinely legislated, that it's the 4 months and the 3 days. So in general, we're not a mourning people. We don't go into deep states of mourning, but we celebrate life, and that's why we usually celebrate the birth of people, the mawlid of the people, a saint or the Prophet or something like that, and not so much on the death anniversary. Okay, we'll pick up the discussion in the next clip, inshallah. Okay, so mourning, mourning. A widow must observe mourning, the ihdad, which is refraining from adornment and using perfume. So let's get into that a little bit more detail. And we read in the hadith in Bukhari and Muslim that the Prophet ﷺ forbade the women from mourning more than 3 days, except the husbands. And remember, I told you that in general, if there's a prohibition followed by an exception, in general, in most cases, the exception is a indication of obligation. So therefore, this is something that is obligatory. What we're about to talk about is an obligation that the woman has to do it. And the reason I say that is that there is a tremendous reward for the woman in observing the mourning for her, a widow that is, for observing the mourning period. It's not something that is meant to be restrictive, even though it will come across as restrictive. You have to understand that there's a great spiritual merit in the act, and because you're doing something that's obligatory, of course, and it's an opportunity for a woman to gain that kind of reward. And there are many hikmas behind it, there are many wisdoms behind it, but at the end of the day, it's something that's just divinely legislated. So we do it because we were told that we're supposed to do it. What is al-ihdad? Al-ihdad is to forbid yourself from something. So when you are mourning, in a state of mourning, you are going to stay away from certain things that are permissible things. Just like when you fast, we stay away from food and drink, and sexual intercourse. All of those things are permissible things. I mean, sexual intercourse permissible for those that are married. I mean, but those are permissible things, but we stay away from them for certain hours to observe the fast. So this is the same kind of thing. A woman is going to stay away and prevent herself from certain things. In the context of the Sharia, I mean, that's what the word al-ihdad means. But in the context of the Sharia, it is that she is going to stay away from displays of beauty and displays of happiness. So that is what it is involved in. So included in this is a woman not wearing jewelry, except if something is necessary, like it's like a medical thing, or like a necklace that has like a, if a person has a medical condition and they have to wear like a bracelet or something like that. But other than that, the woman is not going to wear things that are jewelry, in addition to clothes that are colored and colorful and things like that, because she's in a state of mourning. So when a woman is all decked out, as we say, or dressed to the nines, even if she's going to an all-women's function or a wedding or something like that, I mean, she's doing that to beautify herself. That is what the women are allowed to do to beautify themselves. So therefore, in the state of mourning, a woman is not going to be able to do those things. So jewelry is also something that's going to be included. So the Sharia definition is, he says, which is refraining from adornment and using perfume. So the adornment, the zina here, is clothes, jewelry, and in addition, well, let me go in order. So no gold, no silver, brass, copper jewelry, emeralds, precious stones, semi-precious stones. Not included in that, by the way, are things of beauty and adornment in the home. So here, the mourning being a refraining from displays of beauty is beauty on the person, whether it be clothes or accessories to the clothes, or when he says perfume, a tib. So the words in the matan are a zina and a tib, adornment and tib, perfume. Included in perfume, not just scents, are beauty products. So we'll get to that shortly. Not included in that are things that are, like she has a favorite couch, or she has a favorite pillow, or she has a favorite day bed, or she has the things at home, those things don't count. So we're not talking about those things. Those things are fine. Furniture is fine. The accessories in the house are fine, obviously, for her to engage in. Included in the prohibition, I'm going to just read from the Hashia, so it'll be easier. Included in the things of the prohibition are products of the hair, so oiling the hair, shampooing the hair. Think of course, a woman has to be clean. I mean, we all have an obligation to be clean. So we're not talking about being nasty, but we're talking about the products that have a smell, exactly like Hajj. Actually, he even says that. It's exactly like the beauty products that have a scent in the Hajj. Things like eyeliner, creams for the face, nail polish for the nails, henna, all those things are prohibited. He actually has an extensive thing. There are different names that were used at the time when the Hashia was written, but the different type of creams for the face are all impermissible, except if it's something that doesn't have a scent or a color. So if you have dry skin, and you need, I don't know, some kind of moisturizing cream because of the dryness of the skin, it's like bothering you, or like your lips are chapped. I mean, of course, that's fine as long as it's not scented. So it is just like Hajj, really. It's like a woman is putting herself in kind of like a spiritual state in which she is really mourning, so she is avoiding those marks of beauty and I don't want to say comfort. It's not uncomfortable, but the signs of beauty and celebration. When it comes to the clothes, she's also going to stay away from colored clothes, so like fluorescent colors and things like that. I do understand that there's a little bit of a cultural aspect when it comes to clothes, because the Hashia is really speaking kind of from like a North African or Arab kind of like culture. I know that in sub-Saharan Africa, colors of clothing is a little bit different. But that being said, I mean, bright colors are happy colors. I mean, kind of a universal thing we can say. So here we're talking about muted colors. So a woman would wear muted colors, simple colored clothes. Not a clothes, he says, مَزْبُوغ يَقْصُدُ بِهِ الزِّينَة. So not clothes that are stained or colored in a way on purpose to indicate beauty and celebratoriness. So if I have, this is the best I can do, like with my, I have these like pajamas that I'm going to wear at home, a woman is wearing, and they're a muted color, but there's like one like little fluorescent like lining. I mean, that's not done for, I'm not doing that for happiness, it's just that's how it is, and that's the plainest thing I got to sleep in. So that would be okay. She can wear different fabrics, so that's not included. So she can wear, cotton, she can wear wool, she can wear linen, those kind of things. So we're not talking about the fabrics, we're talking about the colors. So it's not about being uncomfortable, it's just about wearing something that's like loud and expressive of like beauty. And then when it comes to perfume, we're talking about not using perfume in the body and not using perfume on the clothes. Exactly like the rules of Hajj. And you can trim your nails, so that's not included. And there's a little bit of after a woman like finishes her menstrual cycle, she can put in a light scent that is a muted scent for the purpose of cleanliness. Um, okay. And same thing with the eyeliner, so no eyeliner, no kuhul or anything like that. Except if it's out of medical necessity. So anything that's a medical necessity, of course, trumps all of the things that we're talking about. I see that I'm running out of time. I'll pick it up in the next clip, inshallah. Okay, so we're sort of continuing with our discussion on the mourning period. The last thing we said was about the kuhul, that the woman can't use, eyeliner around the eyes, except if it's for medical purposes. So, and I think the last thing I said is that medical reasons, is sort of like necessity, kind of trumps all the things that we're talking about. Okay. If she uses it for medical purposes, if possible, she would use it at night and then wipe it off during the day. So even in that level, we're trying to honor that, okay, well, during the days when usually people will see you and things like that, we're going to try our best not to have it, unless it's, of course, by necessity. If there's a medical necessity, as I said, it's always going to trump all of these things. Okay, so I think from what we've just said, we've kind of understand. Let me just pause for a second before I continue. We kind of understand what the woman is supposed to look like, dress like, how she's supposed to conduct herself for those 4 months and 10 days. She's going to wear muted clothes. The cultural expression is usually these women wear black. It does not have to be black, but it's just muted clothes that don't indicate like I'm super happy. In my culture, in the Egyptian culture, like when a woman goes to Hajj, for example, usually a certain cultural expression is that they wear like all white. So, for the sign of purity. It's not like a sign of celebration. So, a woman could wear like a white gown or a tunic or something like that at the house. So it's not, I don't want you to think about that mourning means black. That might be more of a European or North American or Western kind of concept. It can be, that's certainly permissible, but it doesn't have to be black. The idea is not to wear colors that are celebratory and stains. and the perfume and the creams and the cosmetics and things like that, that's something that the woman would avoid, because that's what a woman usually uses to feel good about herself, to look good, to smell good, to be clean and fresh and things like that. Those are the things that we're going to stay away from, because that's how we then express our mourning for the loss of the husband. And of course, it bears repeating that medical concerns trump everything. A woman, it's permissible for a woman to express the same type of mourning for 3 days for anybody else, so like a relative, a father, grandfather, etc., even a son, God forbid. And then, and that came from the text of the hadith. And then we have the issue about leaving the house. So it is, what does he say? Text. He says, rahimahullah, a widow and an irrevocably divorced woman must remain in the house except in cases of necessity. Okay, so that's sort of one of the things that is a common misconception that I wanted to talk about. Well, I mean, it's very clear, but sometimes it's interpreted falsely. The iddah period, the waiting period for the widow and the divorced woman, is in the house where the act took place. So wherever they are, where the death took place, meaning the marital home, that's where she's going to stay for the duration of the time. Let's say, for example, they were traveling, and this happens frequently, more frequently than people might know, on vacation or something like that, and then the man dies there. Well, obviously, she's not going to stay in a hotel for all of that time. She has to come back to her, she has to be repatriated, and the body has to be repatriated, because oftentimes foreign countries won't allow bodies to be buried. So in that case, she has to fly back. But then once she comes back to the home, the marital home, she will begin the iddah period there. So that would be like kind of an excusable situation, which happens frequently when people travel. So the point is that if we just keep the scenario in our mind simple, that an older couple that are at home, the husband dies, she's going to stay at home. Same thing with the divorce period. And he says, وَهُوَ الْمَسْكَنُ الَّذِي كَانَتْ فِيهِ عِنْدَ الْفُرْقَةِ. It is the place, the house where she was when the separation took place, either through divorce or through death. So she can't be forced out of that place. Now, sometimes you'll find in elderly people, the woman, an elderly woman, she's too frail to be by herself. So either in that case, people take turns staying with her, like her kids and siblings or whatnot, or if the situation is serious, then she can be moved like right away to, like, let's say her son's house, but then she'll remain there. So there is a possibility of movement in the beginning, because I'm saying it this way. It's obviously not written like that in the fiqh book, because these are things that I actually see. So this is one of those cases where if you just know the theory, it might be to your detriment when you come to apply it to real life situations. So I'm giving these all of the things that I just told you. Those are all things that I've witnessed myself, the real life situations. So, obviously you have to be realistic. It's not like people die in their primes and the woman's in her prime and she's fine. I mean, that's like kind of like a romantic view of trying to apply this fiqh. But in many cases, there are extenuating circumstances. Okay, and then obviously she can't go out except by necessity. So he says in the commentaries and the Hashia, she can go out like during the day to buy food or clothes or materials that she needs. She can go out at night to her friend's house. He says, لِغَزْلٍ وَحَدِيثٍ وَنَحْوِهِمَا. They're like doing work, hobbies together, or they can just talk so she's not alone. بِشَرْطٍ أَن تَرْجِعَ وَتَبِيتَ فِي بَيْتِهَا. With the condition that she returns to her home at night and she spends the night at home. So the definition of staying at home means that she spends the night at home. That's what I was trying to say in yesterday's class, and that's what I want you to understand now. Yes, the books say that she shouldn't go out except out of necessity. But then when you see the examples, it's not just out of necessity, like the house is on fire, I have to leave. She can go out for things that she needs. Well, she needs to buy food. He's giving that they're like knitting. I mean, maybe at the time when the Hashia was written, that's what women do. I mean, I don't know any woman that knits anymore, but anyway, you know, this thing broke and I need to go out and get a part from the store to fix it, or something like that. Okay, I mean, a woman can go out not just for darura, not just for necessity, but lil haja, for things and that she needs. And the haja is less stringent than the darura. So the definition then, what breaks the iddah is that she doesn't spend the night at the house. In the book, he says, or Bayjuri says, for example, that she can't go out to trade. I'm interpreting that means that, extra trade. But in the modern world, if a woman works, and that's the only way that she has income, then she's going to have to go out and work, because that's a necessity, keeping in mind all of the things that we just mentioned about her appearance and things like that, because she's in a state of mourning, but she will come and spend the night in the marital home. And then, of course, if there are more serious issues, if she's worried about her safety or her children's safety, if the husband died and the children are young and things like that, of course, then out of that grave necessity, she can leave. And then go somewhere else then to remain for the waiting period. Now, the iddah, as I mentioned, is a great kind of like institution that we often don't think about, because it's very dramatic and sort of what needs to be done. And I just want to reiterate the importance of that, is that it's something that is divinely legislated, of course, as everything we're talking about, and therefore there is a great deal of reward involved in that for the woman. So this is not something that should be seen as restrictive, even though it can come across like that, but it's something that is an opportunity for her to mourn her husband, to have that space, that emotional space of the separation that has happened, to honor the time that she had with her husband and things like that, and to remember, maybe she hated her husband. I mean, maybe I'm being romantic. Or what if she hated her husband? I mean, she still has to do the iddah. But to remember all throughout that she's being rewarded for this. So it's not something that's a punishment. It's something that is done out of an act of reward. And this is one of those points of law, just to repeat one more time, that it's important to think of the actual modern day implications and applications, because if you just read what's in the books, you might not be able to have a concept of that. Wallahu ta'ala a'la wa a'lam wa sallallahu ala sayyidina wa mawlana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. And the man in that case has to provide the housing, because she's really she's no longer his wife. So he just provides the housing, not the upkeep, except if she is pregnant, in which case he has to provide the housing and the maintenance, as we discussed in yesterday's clip. So all the things we discussed about the basic foods and needs. Then the bulk of the lecture was talking about al-ihdad, which is the mourning period. In general, we have a general rule and instruction from the Prophet ﷺ that we do not mourn anybody for more than 3 days. Except for the wife who mourns a widow who mourns her husband for 4 months and 10 days, as comes from the text of the Quran. During the mourning period, the woman is meant to spend the night in the marital home, or in the home where she was when the death took place, and she is supposed to avoid signs of beautifying herself, and whether it be through clothes or through perfumes and type of cosmetics. So a woman will wear simple clothes, not colorful. She will not use beauty products, perfumes, other than what is necessary, just so she doesn't smell bad, of course. I mean, it's not about that. And to help us gauge what those things are, we use the type of health products and personal body products that we use in Hajj. Because in Hajj, it's an extended period of time, you have to wash yourself and shower and things like that. But you're going to use unscented soap, unscented shampoos and things like that. So if there's medical concerns, of course a woman can wear medical things, use whatever creams she needs, like moisturizer cream as I mentioned. Also, she's not going to wear any type of jewelry, except if she's wearing something that is a medical necessity, like a tag or something like that. And she will not leave the house unless she has to, so she can leave If she has to buy things, she can visit a neighbor so she's not alone and things like that. But the idea is that she minimizes those comings and goings so she can observe that period. And I tried to give a lot of practical modern examples because I think this is one of those things, just to repeat for like the third time now, that if you know the theory only and don't know the practice behind it, you can kind of get lost. Okay, walhamdulillah rabbil alameen, wa sallallahu ala sayyidina wa maulana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.